Good evening, dear audience of Conflict and Resilience Research Institute Canada. I welcome all of you today for a special guest and for a special webinar on Rohingya crisis. Before I introduce our guest and His Excellency, Bangladesh High Commissioner in Canada, let me do the treaty recognition. Conflict and Resilience Research Institute Canada is located on original lands of Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homelands of Métis Nation. We work in the spirit of reconciliation, and we believe in collaboration and working together. Ladies and gentlemen, and dear audience, those who have tuned from Bangladesh and from Canada and worldwide, this particular session is important, and it coincides with the 77th UN General Assembly meetings where Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh just spoke this afternoon about this issue. Our today's title of the webinar is Rohingya Crisis, Traditional and Non-Traditional Security Threat. Before I go into the rest part of the webinar, it's my privilege to introduce our guest today, Lieutenant General Retired Mahfuzur Rahman. General Mahfouz was born in 1961 and he retired as a Principal Staff Officer on 29th November of 2020. He took over the duties of Principal Staff Officer of Armed Forces Division in 2016 and was promoted as Lieutenant General. He was commissioned from Bangladesh Military Academy in 1981. As the head of the Armed Forces Division, he was directly involved with the United Nations peacekeeping affairs, preparation, pledges, gender perspective, and deployment, and of Bangladesh Armed Forces, of course. He was also nominated as a gender champion and gender advocate of Bangladesh for UN peacekeeping affairs. He has also done 2 tours of duties as staff in region and force headquarters in Mozambique and Sierra Leone under UN umbrella. Besides writing articles in magazines and dailies on contemporary security issues, the General edited a book on Indo-Bangladesh trade relations and his second book on a study on drug proliferation in Bangladesh, which was published in 2016. He frequents as a panelist and keynote speaker on peace and security in national and international seminars. He's a resource person of Essex University, United Kingdom, sharing his understanding on UN peace support operations. General Mahfouz, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
And dear audience, I have already announced today we are very proud to have with us His Excellency Bangladesh High Commissioner to Canada, Dr. Khalilur Rahman, who has keen interest in Rohingya crisis, and he has been following CRRIC's research, for many months now. Dr. Khalil, sir, welcome to the show as well. Ladies and gentlemen, today the way we have planned our session is we would let the General show his PowerPoint presentation and present the topic for about 20-25 minutes. And then His Excellency and I would be joining with the conversational and dialogue mode with the General, asking questions and clarifying some of his opinions and comments that we are going to witness very soon. The audience, a brief backgrounder of the Rohingya crisis and why we are talking about national security threat, traditional and both non-traditional today. Just a quick update. Over 5 years now, 1.3 million Rohingyas are being hosted in Bangladesh. Such a huge population being hosted is not an easy task for a small country like Bangladesh. Bangladesh is also facing environmental, security, and other issues because of a large population being housed in the southeastern part of the country. So the question is how Rohingyas and their placement is creating security issues for Bangladesh is our main focus of discussion today. As promised, dear audience, before I hand over the floor to the General, let me also play the very recent discussions and lecture of Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, in UN General Assembly today at around 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Ladies and gentlemen, have a listen to the clip and then we'll get into the discussion with the General.
Prolonged presence of the Rohingyas in Bangladesh has caused serious ramifications on the economy, environment, security, and socio-political stability in Bangladesh. Uncertainty over repatriation has led to widespread frustration. Cross-border organized crimes, including human and drug trafficking, are on the rise. This situation can even potentially fuel radicalization. If the problem persists further, it may affect the security and stability of the entire region and beyond. Prolonged presence of the Rohingyas in Bangladesh has caused serious ramifications on the economy and
So, dear audience, we have just heard the comment of Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh about the ramification of hosting Rohingyas for a prolonged period. And with that note, let me also highlight that there was a high-profile seminar that took place on 20th July of this year in Dhaka, Bangladesh, titled Rohingyas and Narco-Terrorism, organized by a daily newspaper Diplomat, and many of the mission heads in Bangladesh were invited to discuss, and the general also was present there. And this is why it is sort of very important to listen from the general what kind of non-traditional and traditional security threats he thinks that Rohingyas and their hosting might cause in the future, or already causing now in Bangladesh. So with this prelude, let me welcome the general to the show. Sir, you are good to go now. Please go ahead and let's listen what you have for us this evening, sir. Floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning to you all from Bangladesh, Dhaka. I intend to take about 25 minutes plus minus to discuss the topic. I just intentionally brought this picture. This is understandable when they are crossing the Naf River, the Rohingyas, and the child got drowned, and the grief is understood. The expression of father is understood. But if you carefully look at the body language of the onlookers at the back, this is really touched me, because see the indifference in their body language. It is something like that. This is a unnatural death is so natural. This is something that worries me a lot. So how do I go about? I would like to first set the scene of the discussion. And then I'll also connect the geopolitical environment leading to the crisis. I'll not go into the details history of the Rohingya crisis or genesis. The present crisis I would like to highlight. And based on that, I'll be talking about Bangladesh traditional and non-traditional security risk. But in general, I'll first cover that, and then I'll connect with the Rohingyas, especially the non-traditional security risks. And if we do not touch about the repatriation, then possibly this crisis will not be resolved. That's why finally I'll be talking about the options for repatriation. In this picture, they look all similar. But on the top picture, I think I don't have to introduce the gentleman on the top left. When the Jewish people during Second World War were hauled together in Eastern Europe, and they are possibly being marched to the concentration camp, the gentleman said, "I see a bunch of rats moving." Viktor Orban is in the center, the Hungarian prime minister. When the refugees from the Syria was moving, he said, "I do not see refugee moving. I see an army marching to inflict our culture." And the last one is Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, who is calling the shot in Myanmar. I'll cover in details, little details about him a little later. But he also mentioned the color are out, means the black are gone. And to one of the questions asked to him about the rape, he said, "They are filthy, who is going to rape them?" So they have the similar kind of thinking. And this is the senior general. We need to understand him very well before we go on to the discussion. He is from a Bamar, which is the main group in Myanmar, and he grew up in the ranks as a mediocre. But he is a pursuer of aim, calm and composed, and he is not hesitant. He mainly was patronized by Thanshe, the earlier dictator. So this is what it is. Also, he is afflicted by Bamar supremacy. When he took over power in 2011, thereafter, in one of the strategic directives that he gave in 2015, he said that we have an unfinished job to be done. And we all understand what is this unfinished job. And there was one incident in 2016 that I'll cover a little later. Then, when the Rohingyas were expelled from Rakhine in the month of August, then in an interview in the month of October, he said that we did not send them to bring them back. We need to understand the writings in the wall. And there is no option of taking them back. That he said in May 2021 in to an international media. When after the coup, both from inside and outside, the junta was under pressure. Even in that situation, this was his comments. Now let us see that what he commands. Yeah, he commands this organization known as Tatmadaw, means the armed forces of Myanmar. This is a meritocratic organization. We need to understand that outshines possibly all other institutions in that country. And they're ruling the country almost 7 decades. To my understanding, military under military over time turns into monster, and Tatmadaw is no exception. But think about this. A monstrous organization with meritocracy, this makes is very dangerous. They run business, control economy, hold important ministries. They control politics as well. 25% of the seat in the parliament is reserved for them. And they also dominate National Defense and Security Council. That's the highest executive body in that country, meaning that they have the power to dissolve the parliament and withhold the constitution if the situation demands. When you sit across a Myanmar general, you do not sit across a security guy only. You sit across an economist, a businessman, a politician, a diplomat, and above all, a leader of a meritocratic organization that has the experience of running the country for several decades. They talk less, listen more, expression seldom reveals conclusion. Brutality, coup, and the other issue is the desertion. So this is the weak area of Tatmadaw. I thought of sharing their strategic culture in relation to Rohingyas. That will give a more or less idea that why they are behaving like this with the Rohingyas. The two definitions that are at the bottom and made my understanding on this. Their shared belief of the elite in the polity and the strategic community is that Rohingyas are non-ethnic to Myanmar, and their assumption is that they have migrated in the recent past. Based on these, the mode of their behavior to the Rohingyas is hostile. Yeah. And that comes from a common experience. And what is that common experience? Common experience that there is high growth rate of Rohingya per family, 7 to 8 children like this. And there are intermarriages taking place. So that made an accepted narrative. The narrative is that there is a Islamization is coming from the West, means Bangladesh side. and it has been prophesied by some of the monks as well. So all these shaped their collective identity, and that collective identity is the security anxiety, collective security anxiety. Once you have that collective security anxiety, then you need to address that. So Myanmar is trying to address that with ends, ways, and means goal, the method, and the resources at their discretion. When this strategic culture is given to Tatmadaw, they only understand use of force. So within the military, the political aim is given. And what is that political aim? Political aim is a bottom picture on the right. That is Myanmar or Rakhine is free of Rohingyas. To achieve that political aim, the left picture is the operational and strategic method of achieving what is on the right picture. So this is what is their strategic culture. Having said that, now let us see the geopolitical situation. Here, big power relationship and regional power rivalry dominate geopolitical ramifications of each and every events that we see here. I cannot say that it was choreographed earlier, then it happened. No, it may not happen like that, but the event has geopolitically has the ramification now. And then Indian Ocean relations between US and China in the Pacific interlocks with the regional rivalry between India and China. Both India and China are energy-hungry power, and energy security plays a key role in this relationship and geopolitics here in this part of the world. Like a smaller country like Bangladesh and others, this Indo-Pacific thing is a security tension, especially the exclusionary policy. We want this is a zone of peace. So that's very important. The below two pictures I would like to connect here. The left picture is that this is the multimodal Kaladan project. What India wants to avoid the chicken neck, which is on the top, which I'll show in some of the slides later. And then they would like to come from Calcutta seaport to Situe or Katfu port of Myanmar, and from there through the Kaladan River they'd go through Palatue, and Palatue unload, and by road they would be connected to Mizoram. This is going to be commissioned possibly in the next year, and close to $1 billion has been spent on this. And this is very strategic to India. And on the right picture, you see the gas pipeline and oil pipeline, which is coming through the Situe port and overland through Myanmar to China Kunming. And especially, these are the places where Rohingyas were residing. So they had to be expelled. And please remember this Yadana project, which was there from the offshore of Myanmar and then over to Thailand. And in that scenario also, Karen were ousted from their places. Okay. Now, this is very important. No ocean is in need of strategic stability like the Indian Ocean. And this is going to be the demographic and strategic hub of 21st century. If you see how important is Myanmar when China is blocked on the east and South China Sea precarious. So this is how they can go to Indian Ocean. Similar with Pakistan. So this is how through Belt and Road Initiative, China would like to move vertically into Indian Ocean. There was two great games in this part of the world. One was 400 BC between Greek and Persia, and the second one was 750 AD between Arabs and Chinese. But the third one is my understanding is going to be in Indian Ocean region on geopolitics. So that's how is important our region is. Now, Rohingya crisis. I was attending a conference in 2018 October in Honolulu, Hawaii, that was also attended by the then chairman of Joint Chief of Staff, General Danford, is here, this gentleman. He asked me that it has been happening to the Rohingyas for quite long. Then how it has happened and choreographed in a manner and synchronized at a such large scale, how it happened, why it happened. And I will answer that. That will possibly give you an idea of my understanding. If you kindly connect this dot, then we'll get a picture. In 2011, Minongla takes over, and then we have seen the building of opinion against the Rohingyas. And there was a movement of Hoshin Uratu, this gentleman. He claimed himself to be Bin Laden of Myanmar because of his movement that he carried out against the Rohingyas. So monks in Myanmar, they are very highly respected. Taken this together, the ground was created. Then in 2013 and 14, a Chinese gas pipeline was commissioned. In 14, in China, National Defense University, there was a seminar, a get-together and a conference. In that, our senior officers attended that particular conference. And one of the questions, two questions were asked by senior generals in that university. One was, how important is Rohingya in the domestic politics of Bangladesh? The second question, will Bangladesh go into armed conflict concerning the Rohingya issue with her neighbor? And we know the answer of both these questions. In 2016, there was a clearing operations in Rakhine. Two cities was created, and 87,000 Rohingyas fled into Bangladesh. I was referring earlier that this is a preliminary operation to test the world community, understand their pulse and observe their activities, and especially Bangladesh. This was carried out, and they understood they can get along with this. Now I would come like 2017, what happened one after the another. In April 2017, two senior generals from Myanmar discreetly visited Dhaka embassy of Myanmar. And then the reason later we came, it was a discussion for the security matters. In 2017 May, Chinese oil pipeline was commissioned. This is the important one spent in this project. And this is the center of gravity of China to avoid Malacca Strait. And in 2017, June and July, Minongla was doing PR, visiting Russia and India. And in July, we got the information through our intelligence community that Myanmar's military is building up in Rakhine state. And then comes the August. In August, third week, the build-up and concentration completed. On 24th August 17, Kofi Annan report was published. And 25th early morning, Assad decided to attack 30 security forces of Myanmar together. I have a serious observation regarding this. And then on 25th August morning, 2017, Myanmar carried out its cleansing operation. So this is how it developed. And then in first week of September 2017, Prime Minister Modi visits Myanmar. He said two things that I was attracted to. One thing he said that he appreciates Myanmar activities, especially for the peace process and peace initiative that they are taking in their country and reconciliation with their different ethnic group. And he was also expressed his concern that the extremist and terrorist activities that are taking place in Myanmar as well as surrounding areas. So this is what ARSA, if you can connect that. And then in November 2017, Min Aung Hlaing visits China to thank Xi Jinping. And he said that we would like to say thank you, China, for standing or besides Myanmar and leading from the front in case of the Rohingya issue to support us. So having said that, now we understand how that was choreographed. This is a fine-tuning of various events. And generally talking, traditional and non-traditional risks to Bangladesh is similar to many countries, like the territorial to border rivalry, power and resource rivalry. These are very much present. But at the same time, we are surrounded by a big country. That kind of syndrome is also there. And our concave coastline has given us weakness in terms of geopolitical potential. The unmarked border, adversely possessed land, border killing, water issue, these are some of the issues that we can think of. In case of Myanmar, St. Martin Island, even at late as 2018, they have shown in their official website that St. Martin is part of them. After that, our foreign ministry raised complaint, then they removed that. That happened twice, in 17 and 18. And then Rohingya issue, insurgency in Arakan, and Myanmar is blaming Bangladesh time and again for what they think that Bangladesh is supporting Arakan army and insurgency. But Bangladesh is not doing that. This is the blame game they are doing. And recently, we have seen the airspace violation, shelling inside Bangladesh. These are sheer undermining our sovereignty, territorial integrity. Then anti-personnel mining, establishing outposts inside Bangladesh territory. There are few outposts. They have something like 70 to 100 meters inside Bangladesh. We have lodged complaint, and I really do not know what is the progress of that. And then general tradition and non-traditional security risk. So in that, non-traditional security issues are drug trafficking, arms smuggling, and human trafficking, and other issues are there besides inequality and politics. So I'll not go into that, but I will go into our southeast situation of Bangladesh. I was talking about the chicken neck, and in Doklam in 2017 there was an incident, standoff between India and China. So this is very critical for them. So I will focus on this part of the world. Tri-border between Bangladesh, India, and Myanmar. This is a rugged terrain, jungle and hilly, and porous border, and there are borders without outpost in this part of the three countries. So having said that, now let us see the situation in southeast of Bangladesh. Arms smuggling, human trafficking, and drug trafficking has the potential to turn into narco-terrorism. And we are seeing the signatures off and on. So this is going to be a serious issue that Bangladesh will face in the future. And then differences of outlook between countries, three countries in this area of three type of political platform: democracy, struggling democracy, and then we have a military autocracy. And there are differences between state, center, and the state. Case example of water issue in India with Bangladesh. And then organization has different outlook on different issues. For example, the inertia of intelligence community may not at times tally with the center and the states. So those are there as well. The differences of opinion between Min Aung Hlaing and General Tun Myat Naing, Chief of Arakan Army, on Rohingya issues. Like Chief of Arakan Army favors that Rohingyas should go back to their homeland, that is Rakhine, and he doesn't have any issues in that. So non-traditional security issues have the potential to turn into security threat. That we have seen in 1991, that Myanmar captured and took over one of our outposts. Then the scope of violence, extremism, and terrorism exists, which I'll touch on a little later.
The audience, we apologize for a little bit of connection issue here, but in the meantime, the general let him come back and we continue our discussion. As the general was mentioning that non-traditional security threat might turn into traditional security threat, which has happened in 1991 in Bangladesh. The incident he was referring to is known in Bangladesh as Rijupara situation. And this is what, so the general is back again. Sorry, General,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Just a moment. Is that fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what is lurking around the corner? What is happening that we know, but what is not happening but coming around the corner? We know there are more than 4,000 children, 400,000 children growing up with a proper education and hope and dream. They had experienced horrors of their lives. By 2030, most of them will be adult, homeless, with trauma in their minds and hatred in their hearts. What they will turn into, only future can say. We can discuss this issue during our discussion time. This is not going to be a problem of Bangladesh alone, as Prime Minister has mentioned already. This will have regional, global ramification. But what is worrying about that Bangladesh did not invite this. She is just a victim of the circumstance. And now the current situation, current position. Myanmar is in a commanding position in case of Rohingya issue. That we all understand now. Myanmar economic and business relation with China, Russia, South Korea, Singapore, Japan, and Vietnam, especially some of the junta personalities who have got sanctioned, they are avoiding that through Vietnam. And the Myanmar had significant economic growth even after 2017, after the genocide, despite Western unhappiness. So having correlated difficulties, junta manipulated geopolitical setting, fine-tuned diplomacy, and controlled internal disobedience. Being at a dictating terms, junta has no motivation of taking back the Rohingyas. The recent China initiative of mediation of taking back part families proposal is unacceptable. That means if there are 10 members in the family, possibly they will pick up 3, 4, and also will not keep them in the same place. Maybe that they will be kept into 3 camps. So that is also unacceptable. And then we come to the options for repatriation. A traditional military option may complicate situation, meaning, which the Chinese in the EU said, is Bangladesh ready for armed conflict with neighbor in case of Rohingya? So we do not have political appetite for this. And Bangladesh military also under the democracy and the political supremacy is not ready in doing that as well. So we understand the situation, but it is very important to understand that the brute force only given to brute force. This diplomacy may not be working in case of Tatmadaw. Then endorsing mass sentiment is important. When in Myanmar, the citizen, the general people are going through the oppression. In this situation, if we do not show our empathy with them, then possibly this is going to be expensive in future. And the pressure on Janta, that key personalities and their families' business that has economic and social effect may have some response. We can think about it and pursue. And diplomatic pressure from all and engagement with regional power, meaning both China and India, especially China, could resolve the issue and maybe more helpful. Rohingya political organization must maintain communication with National Unity Government, NLD-led, and ULA. ULA is the political wing of Arakan Army. This is very important. Bangladesh does not support, has zero tolerance using its territory by exotic group or other armed group of the neighbor. In that, possibly Rohingya can go ahead with their political activities and communication with other groups who are suffering in the similar manner. And the options for repetition, the other set is that strategic stamina and patience would be invaluable. We should not venture into something that is not palatable with the regional and global geopolitical setup now. And Bangladesh proposal for a safe zone concept inside Rakhine State can be an alternative. And how do you do that? We can have separate discussion and exercise on that. And meaningful involvement of ASEAN, BIMSTEC, this regional organization, could produce significant dividend in repatriation initiative. Whatever may be the case, the repatriation should be acceptable, respectable, and dignified for the Rohingyas. With this, I come to the conclusion. I would like to conclude with Robert D. Kaplan, one quote that China and India and other Asian nations jockeying widest and wealthiest and the most strategically placed rogue regime. With this, I come to end of my discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I would say it was a very well-rounded discussion. And I'm also relieved in a sense that many of our conclusions actually coincide with the general's comments today. In our first book, which was published in 2020, we did discuss about the concept of safe zone, which I'm not sure why it is not gaining traction in international community. And of course, the audience, you have seen a set of ideas that the general shared with us this evening about repatriation and what are the difficulties in doing so. The audience, it's time for us to get into a dialogue with the general. Now, it's an honor to invite His Excellency Dr. Khalilur Rahman to the discussion. Sir, if you have your observation or question, please go ahead, sir. Unmute kindly, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kausar, and I like to congratulate General Mahfouz, I think, for a wonderful presentation. I think he was listening very carefully to the scenario he presented. I have been, with this CRRIC organized webinar on this very issue for last 1.5 years. I think time and again, what I said, that has been so well presented in a very articulated way with evidence and with concrete information by General Mahfouz. So I have nothing to add. And I'm very happy that, today the Honorable Prime Minister at the 77th General Assembly, UN General Assembly, exactly said what we have been, and the experts like General Mahfouz and others have been trying to say, that how the prolonged presence of Rohingyas in Bangladesh causing the serious problems for Bangladesh. This is very unfortunate that the global West is, I think, I don't know whether they are deliberately failing to appreciate the serious, ramifications, consequences of the prolonged presence of Rohingyas in Bangladesh. As the Honorable Prime Minister has very eloquently articulated today, that yes, it has all kind of implications for Bangladesh currently, but it will not remain in Bangladesh. Very soon, it will go beyond Bangladesh. It will affect the region, and it will affect the whole world. And I don't know in whose interest the global West and some other countries who have, as I think, quite, I should say, huge influence on the army generals in Myanmar. They can make the difference. General Mahfouz has pointed out what are these, big countries who can play a very effective role. And today, if we heard the Honorable Prime Minister carefully, she said that Bangladesh is ready to dialogue bilaterally, trilaterally, or globally for early repatriation of these forcibly displaced Myanmar nationals, who is, I think, now stands 1.4 million, with the birth of the babies over last 5, 6, 7 years. I should only like to request or tell the global West that it is important to look at these hapless, forcibly displaced Myanmar nationals in a fair and non-discriminatory way. They should not be looked at. These crises should not be neglected and should not be looked at because of their, color, because of their race, because of their religion, because of their language. So this is what I believe, and I'm very blunt in saying that global West is not seriously appreciating the huge ramifications of this crisis, not only for Bangladesh, for the region, and for the whole world. So General Mahfouz has articulated very well, in a very effective manner, how this repatriation can be possible, and why it should be done as early as possible. I have been working with CRRIC and with Dr. Kausar, that this is what I think more than a year ago we also thought. The different kind of ramifications. In the beginning, in his introduction, Dr. Kausar mentioned that we have been also working with BISS, especially to look at this, the security aspects of this issue. But I think now today the Honorable Prime Minister has said there is no aspect, no area that is not facing challenges because of this crisis. And this is appalling to hear some of the uh, civil society organizations. I would like to refer to a news report by a so-called environmentalist, saying that this is not the time to talk about environmental protection and preservation. And I think, though I saw the a number of UN heads of UN agencies made the Honorable Prime Minister, but I think if we look at their activities, they are also not very serious. And I never heard the UN Environmental Organization or Agency to talk about the environmental destruction in Bangladesh, worth 30,000 acre of forest land. Uh, so even not only the global West, I think, including many UN agencies, they are quite silent uh, for the repatriation. The way global West is involved in doing justice, or in stopping the persecution, or their involvement in the war between Russia and Ukraine. I think on this specific case, they are totally, I think, negligent. So that's why, very rightly, the Prime Minister has said in her speech that it is time to stop arms race. It is time to, go away with sanctions. It is time to invest in global goods, and this is one area that why the global West, and especially the UN system as a whole, and the leaders of the world, including the three big countries, as General Marcus has mentioned very eloquently, they really need to be serious to do something that is effective for early repatriation of the Rohingyas. So I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. These are very insightful comments, and we do recognize your observation as very important in a sense that the environmental degradation and the impact of Rohingya crisis is often overlooked, and I would possibly go on saying that seriously overlooked at this point in time. General, I do have a threefold question, but I promise you I'll start with one after another. First, I would like to seek your comments about, I would say, possible reluctance of the United States military or the US Navy in the Indian Ocean region. And during your tenure as a principal staff officer, I assume you have had several interactions with the US military, especially US PACOM and PASOLs. So would you be able to share your thoughts why United States is so reluctant pursuing Chinese influence in Indian Ocean vis-a-vis the crisis that we are talking about, and what could be the reason for that, sir?
I would approach from the point of view of priorities. U.S. priority, if you say about Pacific, South China Sea and East China Sea vis-a-vis Bay of Bengal and Indian Ocean, possibly the Eastern China Sea is a priority over Bay of Bengal or Indian Ocean. That's one thing. Main issue is containing China. Is from their viewpoint, it's not containing Myanmar or the issues happening, what is happening between Bangladesh and Myanmar on Rohingya issue. These are sideshows. To them, these are not the important issue. So if China can be contained, then possibly Myanmar issues and other issues will gradually have their effect as well. So these are possibly some of the reasons that US has their own way of thinking. And ideally, at times, I do not say this is the big power rivalry. This is the big power relationship. This is how in real politics, in structural, I'm a student of structural realism. So this is how this world functions. That's the kind of relationship.
Thank you, sir. That is a very, I would say, disappointing future for us. So moving on to the second question, sir. I'm also interested to get your comments on an issue that for Bangladesh, both China and India are strategic partners. India is our only neighbor onto the three sides. So in this whole issue, when we see that the escalation of a number of smaller border violations and incursions, airspace violations are taking place, and you yourself have mentioned in your presentation. So in this whole discussions or diplomatic relationship, how the question of the territorial sovereignty and the security of Bangladesh is being placed or viewed. What do you think on that point, sir?
This is very interesting question, especially China is our development partner, India as well development partner. This is very important to understand that we are development partner, not strategic partner. But Myanmar is a strategic partner to China. So a strategic partner can be a development partner, but it's not necessarily a development partner is a strategic partner. So that's the difference between Myanmar and Bangladesh to China. In case of India, Bangladesh is not a vassal state, and we don't have appetite to become a vassal state. As Myanmar is already a vassal state, do we agree or don't agree, it's a vassal state to China. But Bangladesh would like to maintain a neutrality or balance as far as possible. So in that scenario, we become a buffer state, and a buffer state will face certain difficulties, like Ukraine faced certain difficulties. So those are the thing happening. And at the same time, it is also important to understand, I was always telling, and I say this, that the Tatmadaw, this is a meritocratic organization. It's not that it happened, that two regional power, you'd find seldom they have the similar opinion. You'll not find the Iran and Saudi Arabia has similar opinion. You'll not find China and India has similar opinion. But in this event, they had similar opinion. It is the smartness of Tatmadaw, and Tatmadaw played their geostrategic situation into geopolitical landscape. We have to give the due credit to them. And at the same time, China already knows for its energy security, he doesn't have alternative, or she doesn't have alternative to Myanmar. So whatever it takes, she is going to stand beside Myanmar. If he has to choose between Myanmar and Bangladesh, Myanmar will always be chosen. And then in case of India, India also doesn't want Myanmar to totally fall into the fold of China. Its neighbor, regional power, wouldn't like that. And then it has border with those three important three sisters like Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland. And then there are insurgency issues. The relationship with Myanmar is very important for India as well. So for all this reason, and at the same time, I don't know how you are going to take it, but India feels that Bangladesh is already very close to India, and then Bangladesh is going to remain a good friend, and then but it's not the same with Myanmar, and then with Myanmar she cannot take chance. So these are some of the issues I think is very important to understand.
Thank you, sir. Again, sir, please go ahead, sir. His Excellency, please.
In fact, I should not make any comment on this very specific issue. But, I lived in India for 15 years. 4 years I served in the High Commission, and also I worked in the WC Regional Office for another 11 years. And in those years, I witnessed something as a diplomat and as an international civil servant, that India's main concern has been the security issue, especially in the northeast area, and Bangladesh was often, told that there are so-called insurgent groups in Bangladesh. So when the Honorable Prime Minister came to power, especially in 2009, and since then for last 14 plus years. This is one thing that the government of Bangladesh has really did so well: is zero tolerance to any kind of extremism, radicalization, and that has really eradicated any kind of extremism on the soil of Bangladesh that can or might create any security threats to India. But if we look at the statement made by the Honorable Prime Minister today, that this prolonged presence of Rohingyas is fueling radicalization. And we have seen many incidents in the camps and what is happening now. And a time can come when the government of Bangladesh won't be able to contain all this. So ultimately, it will spill over to neighboring countries. And the concern India has been having, it will return. So I believe it is also in the interest of India that using their goodwill with Myanmar, they convinced the regime, the Myanmar government, to take back the Rohingyas. India can help Myanmar in developing the Rakhine state where the Rohingyas can live with dignity and with safety. So it is also, I believe, in the interest of India that the repetition starts immediately. I know the China has been this traditional, good rapport, good relationship with Myanmar, especially with its regime. I mean, it has been, governed by this regime for, I think, from 1960, if not earlier. It is normal that they will be supporting Myanmar, but as Jael Mahfouz has rightly said, that China is perhaps the number one development partner for Bangladesh now in terms of Chinese investment in Bangladesh, the Chinese exclusive economic zone. And China is also investing in Rakhine State. So it is also in the interest of Chinese investment, both in Rakhine State, Myanmar, and in Bangladesh, that there is a peaceful situation along the border. So I would say, though I am still serving in the government, Mahfouz is now quite free a bit. He can get by saying many things, but I may not. But still, I'm saying that it is also in the interest of both India and China to convince and to impress upon Myanmar regime or Myanmar to ensure that the repetition starts as early as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very important point. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very close to the end of the session. But before I formally request the General to conclude and summarize his today's presentation, let me have the last opportunity to ask him. I think we are requesting the General to kindly put this to his answers in one response. So, sir, we are interested to understand the impact of narco-terrorism. I'm referring to the seminar that you were presenting in July. So, what do you see, sir, in today's context, the regional expansion of these trafficking, especially coming out of Rakhine State to Bangladesh and other states, and especially the Saudi diplomat or the ambassador, I believe, he really commented that it is also crossing into their territories as well. So what is the latest situation with regards to narco-terrorism? And the second part of the question is, we would like to also get your comments about the future potentials of conventional warfare, whether it is a limited scale or bigger than that. Do you really see any potential of that given these recent I would say the flaring up of border incursions? Go ahead, sir.
Okay, let me cover the second part first, the potentiality of conventional war. I do not think a full-scale war is possible or will happen. But what can happen, when the situation in the street of Mandalay, Yangon, and Naypyidaw are under control, then possibly the junta would try to look out for areas where they would like to carry out their operations and stabilize the situations, and which those areas could be. Not necessarily that they would go into the bordering areas of India and China, because that spillover effect wouldn't be liked by the regional power. At the same time, it's not against Thailand, because Thailand has credible deterrence. The other is the country has psychogeographic phenomena and has the similar good relation with Myanmar. So only country remain that is a boogeyman is Bangladesh, who are militarily not very powerful compared to Myanmar today. So if they want to take any adventure, they would be possibly doing against Bangladesh. And there can be a few reasons. Number one, what is happening now, we are seeing now, I understand my analysis that they are doing it for 2-3 reasons. Number one, that Arakan army possibly overstepped to their understanding, and they felt that this is the time we need to contain Arakan army, otherwise they would possibly take the control of whole of Arakan. Already they are controlling 60 to 70% of the area. They are controlling the police, the judiciary, the taxation, etc. So they came to contain this. Otherwise, the authority was slipping away. This is one. The other issue is that they would like to galvanize the nationalistic feelings, that it is, if the Union of Myanmar is to sustain, it is only Tatmadaw that can do it. In that, they might adventure in a surgical operation, like I mentioned in my talk, during the deed in 1991 in Rejupara incident. So they are not there, they would not go there to hold on to the ground, but an operation that could rejuvenate the nationalistic feeling inside Myanmar, the ultra-nationalist group. So these are some of the issues possibly are on their drawing board. So my understanding is this: if it escalates, it can go up to that. Now about narco-terrorism. This is very important to understand that drug proliferation, what is happening many a times, many countries and societies, they address it with security outlook, with state-centric approach. But this is completely a social issue. This is not a security issue. This is a demand and supply issue. This is pure economics. So if it is a social issue, we need to address socially, not militarily, not securitize it. The moment we securitize it, it becomes double insecurity. So there is a difference of the outlook of addressing this particular issue. But at the same time, we have seen in many countries in the world, history is replete with example in Latin Americas, that only a nation address when this goes out of their control, when the narco-terrorism takes a shape that it is beyond the control of that particular society, then we go on to address. Then it really becomes difficult for us. For Bangladesh, it is in between Golden Triangle and Golden Crescent. And due to the presence of this porous border and these exotic groups of 3 countries operating here, they need money. And this is a billion-dollar business. And Myanmar separatist group, some of the groups like Wa State Army, Shan State Army, they had come into agreement with, in 1989, with the then military regime of Myanmar, that they will be allowed to do this production of the drugs. In a state, they would get the impunity that Tatmadaw will not be attacked and they will not into Tatmadaw controlled area. So this is what is happening. Now Arakan army is getting bigger and bigger. So they say they have 20 to 30,000 strong forces. What do you pay from for these forces? You need money. The economy is not that strong in Rakhine state. So these drugs are coming, and gradually it is coming inside Bangladesh. And Bangladesh, it has become a transiting hub. So this is what is happening now. Now it is very important. The drug is not going to affect only Bangladesh society. It's not going to take the vitality of the youth of Bangladesh society. It's going to infect everyone in the region and globe. We need to understand this globally. If you want to address this, a singular country approach will fall far short than the solution. This is a trans-border crime. A trans-border, a multinational approach is necessary. But it's sorry to say that the political platform and the political will and understanding of these three countries are very different. So I do not see something great is happening, but wish it could happen in future. And finally, I would like to conclude by saying that His Excellency also mentioned about what is coming next. He mentioned about the extremism and terrorism. I'd like to take a minute about on this issue. We had been talking about when ISIL was happening, the West was paranoia with the foreign fighters. How many of them? 10,000, 20,000, 30,000? And they created havoc. And we have seen what monster they became. And they did not suffer really. They came from pretty decent background, from the wealthy countries mostly. And because they felt injustice around the world, and for adventurism they did it. Now think about 400,000 children are growing up in Rohingya camps. By 2030, they are all going to be adult. Many of them have seen their mothers being violated. For them, there is no bottom line. And they can be exploited by anybody. When ISIL is shrinking in their epicenter in Syria and Middle East, we have seen like balloon squeeze syndrome. They would go in different places. They have already gone to West Africa. And this is a target group served on the plate. They could come here as well. And then this is not going to be a problem of Bangladesh alone. And Bangladesh is not able to handle this kind of menace. We need to understand this, that there are two options. Should we address it now, or should we wait when it is a full-blown security situation? And that is going to be very difficult at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. What an insightful discussion. And I would have wanted to continue, but for the sake of our audience and for the sake of brevity, I would like to conclude the session. But before I let the general go, it is an honor to host you today, sir, here in Canada. Thank you very much for your well-rounded discussion. And I think we have received a couple of important messages from your analysis. And you have studied this issue from academic point of view as well as a military strategist. And that is why I think your insights are important. And I would only echo with your comments, given our own research back in 2019. I was doing my fieldwork in the camps, and this is super important to understand by the rest of the world international community, as His Excellency time and again alluded to that. Try to understand the timeliness of intervention of this issue. And General Mahfouz rightly mentioned, you have two options: either you intervene now or you intervene when everything is out of control and spiraling out of the system. So and with this one, I just would like to say that intervention in this particular conflict is tricky, we understand, and the general rightly mentioned and distinguished between the nature of the big three countries, for example, the China, India, and their strategic interest. And he nicely mentioned that there are differences with regards to strategic partnership and development partnership, and the situation of Bangladesh itself. So I think it is high time we bring it up to more audiences, especially in Canada and the US, the countries those who support humanitarian issues, the Rohingyas back in Bangladesh, so that we have a well-rounded approach of addressing and the future potential of anarchy and conflict in this particular area of the world. So with this, I would like to also thank His Excellency. It is midnight in Ottawa. Thank you, sir, for being with us. You have a lot of energy. You have displayed energy in the past too, and you remain engaged with the Rohingya crisis, not only from Ottawa, from everywhere. So our sincere thanks to you, sir, for adding valuable comments to General's presentation today. And the audience, before I say goodbye and good night, stay well and stay safe. And we'd like to invite the General again because we just realized that he's also an expert in gender dimension in UN peacekeeping operations. And you'll be happy to know, General, that from Conflict and Resilience Research Institute, with collaboration of Bangabandhu Center, we did have one high-profile webinar on UN female participation, which is called in short CHODS in here. Canada and Bangladesh both are founding members. So we'll be looking forward to invite you again and listen from your another I would say insightful experience from that platform. Thank you very much, dear audience. Please tune in for our next episode. We'll be hosting soon another important topic on Rohingya crisis and intervention. Take care, and thank you so much. Thank you, General, once again for being with us in Bangladesh. Thank you, His Excellency. Goodbye and good night.
Thank you.